Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gentle Yoga with me, Micki Josi, and my cat, Lily, who will sometimes be running around. Oh, she's actually sleeping over here on the piano now. So I have some props that we can use, a blanket, block, strap, and maybe a bolster. And you can always find anything that would work for you at home. So I would invite you to find a comfortable position. And one of my favorite ways to start class, as you probably know already, is to take a blanket and just make a really small roll. And this can go right underneath your heart center. But if there's another shape that you know you prefer, feel free to always, this is your own practice, right? And so you can always feel free to modify, do what works best for you. So what you're going to do with this blanket roll is come to lie on your back with the roll probably right underneath your heart center. You might wiggle your knees a little side to side, maybe windshield wiper the knees to just find that just right place. And then you can either rest your arms, your hands on your belly, or you might cactus your arms. For your legs, you could walk your feet as wide as the mat. Allow the knees to tent together, or you might bring the soles of the feet to touch and open the knees up wide to the sides. If you do this and you want some support for under the knees, you could slide the blocks underneath your knees. And that can look like this. So this is called Supta Baddha Konasana, which is basically just a reclined bound angle is what that means. So allow yourself to arrive in this moment. Feel the earth rise to support you. And just take a moment to tune your awareness into your heart center. Feeling the weight of gravity holding you to the ground. You might close down your eyes, and as you tune your awareness into your heart center, you can notice if you have a specific intention for your practice this morning. The theme for this class is the very last niyama, which is called Ishvara Pranidhana. This means surrender. So if you'd like to use the idea of surrender as your intention, you can imagine it like a jewel. Maybe it has a specific color, and then invite it to plant at your heart center. I just have a short reading to get us started on that theme from the book by Deborah Adele, The Yamas and the Niyamas. She says, Ishvara Pranidhana, the jewel of surrender, presupposes that there is a divine force at work in our lives. Whether we call it God, grace, providence, I love that one, or life, this force is greater than we are and cares deeply about us. Surrender invites us to be active participants in life, totally present and fluid with each moment, while appreciating the magnitude and the mystery that we are participating in. This guideline invites us to surrender our egos, open our hearts, and accept the higher purpose of our being. We have had tastes of this jewel of surrender when we are being in the flow or in the zone. Life wants to surprise and delight and grow us in ways far beyond our imagination. how can we begin to find this rhythm of surrender or the immense joy and trust that overflows when we release our rigidity and our need to control? We can fully engage life as it comes to us. We can place our egos in devotion to what is greater. We can begin to taste the bounty of this jewel. So if that idea of Ishvara Pranidhana, surrender, speaks to you, you're welcome to use it as an intention for your practice today. If your knees are open wide to the side, you can maybe bring your hands sweetly to your thighs and press your knees up towards the sky. And then either with the blanket roll still underneath you, I think it feels good, but if it's not feeling okay for you, you can slide it off to the side. And then we'll walk the feet as wide as the mat and go ahead and allow the knees to begin to fall over to the right, maybe turning the gaze over to the left. And then you can inhale, sweep the knees back up to center. Exhale, allow them to sweep over to the left, turning the gaze to the right. And you might find this movement a little bit side to side. Just tuning your awareness into your body. Breathing into any areas of sensation. And as I mentioned at the beginning of class, feel free to follow the pace of your own breath and modify anything to meet your own individual needs. Go ahead and take one more nice deep breath on each side. And when you feel balanced from left to right, we'll meet back up in center. When you're ready, you can roll onto one side, press yourself up into a seat, and then we'll take our blanket and you might fold it into a square, and then you can use that to help lift your hips to come to a seat. You might have your blocks and your strap close by. So from your seated position, go ahead and take a moment to ground down. So feel your sit bones rooted on the earth. Start to lengthen through your spine. Slightly tuck your chin towards your chest. On the next exhale, you can bow your head towards your heart, and then we'll inhale to sweep the left ear over towards the left shoulder. Exhale, back to center, bowing your head towards your heart, and then inhale the opposite ear over towards the opposite shoulder. You might take a few rounds of breath like this. Just allowing any tension living in the neck and the jaw to gracefully release with your breath. Take one more nice deep breath on each side. And then when you're ready, we'll meet back in center. You can bring your hands onto your knees and then lift your gaze back up to center. Let's bring the hands together at the heart center and start to draw a few figure eights with the wrists, interlacing the hands. You might hear some snap, crackle, pops here. And then we'll reverse the direction of the figure eights when you're ready. And then on the next inhale, you can bring the fingers to press in front of you, round the spine back. And then we'll inhale to lift the heart, lift the gaze, lift the hands. You can release the fingertips. Let's bring the left hand down to your side, either onto the mat or onto a block. And then we'll reach that right hand up and overhead. And you might send your gaze up towards your fingertips. And then on your exhale, you can start to rotate your gaze down towards your hand. Then maybe as you inhale, you lift your gaze. And as you exhale, you start to shake your head no, lowering your gaze. Perhaps thinking about what in your life you might need to say no to. And practicing saying no. The next time you lift your gaze up towards your fingertips, on your next exhale, we'll sweep that hand out in front and you might reach it out at a diagonal. And then inhale to circle, sweep the arm back up and overhead. Go ahead and take a few more rounds like this. And you might follow your fingertips with your gaze. Let's take one more round. On the next inhale, we'll rise to center. And then exhale, bring your hands to your heart center. And this time, interlace your fingers the awkward way, so the opposite way as before. And you can start to draw a few figure eights with the wrists. I notice fewer snap, crackle, pops this time. So we're helping to lubricate the joints with that synovial fluid, and you can start to reverse the direction of your figure eights when you're ready. And then we'll flip the palms forward, round the spine back, kind of like a cat shape here. And let's inhale to lift the gaze, lift the heart, lift the hands up to center. And then you can release the hands. This time we'll bring the right hand down either to a block or to the ground. And you can flip your palm so that it's facing down towards the ground. Rainbow your arm up and overhead. Maybe you turn your gaze up towards your hand if that feels okay for the neck. On your exhale, you might lower your gaze down to your bottom hand. And just start to once more practice saying no. I think especially I have such a hard time with boundaries, saying no. So be a good practice thinking about maybe something you would like to release that no longer serves you. Allow yourself to just gently shake your head no. It's okay to say no. I love the saying, no is a complete sentence. The next time you lift your gaze up towards your hand, we'll start to find those arm circles. So you can reach your arm out in front, maybe at a diagonal as you press into the earth or the block. And then we'll inhale to circle, sweep the arm back up and overhead. You can go ahead and take a few more rounds like this, following the pace of your own breath. Take one more nice deep breath in whichever direction you're moving. And if you feel balanced from left to right, you can pause for a moment and then we'll inhale to come back up to center. Exhale to bring your hands to your heart center. Now, I know everyone has different, we all have different unique bodies. So if you want to stay seated either on the floor or on a chair or bed, that's fine. You can always do a lot of the movements from a seat or even on your back. In previous classes, I've talked about some of the tabletop positions we've done on your back. So feel free to give yourself those options. If you'd like to stay seated for cat cow, that's okay. If you'd like to move into tabletop, we'll just either roll over your shins and move your feet behind you, or just roll onto one side. From your tabletop position, you can also give your wrists a little bit of a break. Where'd my other block go? Oh, it's literally behind me. If you wanted to bring your blocks on the medium setting, you can always bring your forearms onto blocks or your forearms onto the floor. So sometimes I don't like to be on my wrists. Remember that this blanket could also work as a cushion for underneath your knees. Maybe you would unfold it though to make it a little flatter. So feel free to either come to tabletop or stay seated. And from here, we'll find a few rounds of cat and cow. So inhale to drop the belly for cow pose. Exhale to round into the spine for cat. Go ahead and follow the pace of your own breath. Just exploring the movement of your spine. After a few rounds of cat and cow, it might feel good to draw a circle with the belly button. Feel free to move at your own pace. Maybe you want to take your time. Really tune your breath into an awareness of your spine. All the different directions it can move. You might like to draw a circle with the belly button. When you're ready, you can reverse the direction of your circle if you're drawing one. Take a moment to offer yourself gratitude for this unique body. You can marvel at the design of your amazing spine. All it does to support you. Take one more nice deep breath wherever you're at. And then we're going to play around with bird dog. This is the pose I was mentioning we've done before on our backs. So if you prefer to be off of the knees and the wrists, you can always come to laying on your back in an upside down tabletop. I'm going to stay here in tabletop. And from here, you can slide your, let's do the other side. Let's slide the right leg back, tuck the toes under, press the heel towards the mat. So if you're on your back, you would just be lengthening your legs straight, using the strength of your core. And then from here, we're going to play around with balance and bird dog. So you can either kick your heel behind you, and then you might reach your opposite arm. So this would be your left arm and your right leg. Just finding a little bit of core engagement here to help keep yourself upright and balanced. Whenever you're ready, you can release that side. And then we'll switch sides. So extend your right leg, or sorry, this is your left leg now, back behind you. Tuck the toes under. Press your heel towards the mat, finding length through the back of your calf. And if you want to work on that balance, you can either just extend the leg directly behind you, and or maybe the right arm. Take a nice deep breath, keeping a soft gaze. And then on your next exhale, you can bring both the hand and leg back down. And we'll relax into child's pose. So you might bring the knees wide, open, or bring the big toes to touch. Open the knees wide, sink the hips back, and either walk the arms out in front and lower the torso down to the mat, resting your forehead. Or if you'd like to do a supported child's pose, if you have a pillow or a bolster, you could always bring that underneath the torso to rest, turning one cheek. You might sigh out through the mouth. Maybe take an audible sigh. Once more, feeling the earth rise to support you. You might imagine yourself cradled by the earth, feeling all of the nutrients, all of the support, and just letting go, surrender, Ishvara Pranidhana. What can you let go of? Where in your body might you invite a release? Relaxing the jaw. If you're on the bolster and you have one cheek resting, you can lift your head and turn to the other cheek. Once more, inviting a little softening. Inviting that surrender, noticing that seed of intention, that jewel at your heart center. When you're ready, you can press yourself up. And we'll slide that bolster out of the way. And then we're going to get ready to come down onto our bellies. So you may or may not want the blanket underneath you for that. I'm going to set mine off to the side and just move the props out of the way as well. So from here, you can either just come directly onto your belly, or you might start out in a forearm plank. So just depending on if you want to build a little heat or not. From your forearms, you can slide your right leg back, and then maybe you slide the left leg back to meet it. And you could always stay on your knees as well. You might take a few rounds of breath in your forearm plank. And then whenever you're ready, you can soften your belly all the way down to the ground, untuck your toes, plant your elbows underneath your shoulders, press your palms into the mat, and then traction your heart forward as you drag the hands energetically back for Sphinx pose. On the next exhale, go ahead and turn your gaze past your left shoulder. Inhale back to center. Exhale, turn your gaze past your right shoulder. Maybe you take one more round. Inhaling through center, exhaling to peek behind you. And then we're going to come into our crocodile pose. This is called Makrasana. And you can stack the palms and lower your forehead down to the back of your hands to rest. Take a moment here to soften all of your effort. It might feel good to bend into the knees, and maybe you want to windshield wiper the heels a little bit side to side. If that doesn't feel good, you can always just keep the feet planted on the mat. From this position, notice the rise and fall of your breath and allow the turtle shell of your back body to fill with breath. One of my yoga teachers said this pose is great for anxiety. So it might just be some way to help us ground. If we notice in our day, maybe we can file this pose away. If we're feeling unhinged or anxious, it might be an opportunity for us to give ourselves this support. Once more, you might feel the hug of gravity holding you to the ground. Feel all the resources and support and allow yourself this moment to surrender. You're always welcome to stay here as long as you'd like, but if you're ready to move on to the next thing, you can bring your hands behind you with the palms facing up. And then turn your gaze to the left. Allow the right temple to rest on the mat. On the next inhale, we'll lift the legs, lift the feet, lift the heart, bring the gaze to the edge of your mat, the front edge. And then just imagine you're a flying superhero here, keeping yourself lifted, floating above the earth. And then on the next exhale, you can turn the gaze to the right. Soften all of your effort this time. Allow your left temple to rest. And really take a moment here to delight in this time of rest. Tuning your breath and your awareness into the sensations in your body, and notice if you can soften your glutes. On the next inhale, we'll bring the palms underneath the shoulders. You can tuck the toes under and then press up through either plank or tabletop. We are going to make our way to standing. So if you'd like, you can bring your hands maybe onto, or if you want to take downward facing dog, you might use your blocks underneath your hands. Or you can also do downward dog at the wall or with a chair. So from your downward dog, you might take a few rounds of breath here, maybe sashaying the hips a little side to side. If you're wanting to use the wall, you would just come to a wall space and you can walk your hands down the wall. So you wouldn't have to be on all fours. And then maybe you want to take a lion's breath here. So on your next exhale, you can stick out the tongue, scrunching up the face, exhaling through the mouth. Allowing any tension in the jaw and the temples to release with your breath. And then we'll make our way to a forward fold. And I like to bring my blocks on the high setting for the forward fold. And you can allow yourself to dangle here. Maybe you want to wrap your hands around your opposite elbows. And just allow yourself to gently ragdoll here a little side to side. Once more, you might shake your head no. And then maybe you want to nod your head yes. Maybe you can think of one thing that you'd like to invite in. New opportunities. And we'll release our hands down and you can press the palms on the top of the blocks. Let's inhale for halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale to forward fold. And 2 more times like this. Inhale for halfway lift, either pressing your hands into blocks or your shins. Exhale to forward fold. And one more time like this. On the next inhale, you can go ahead and bend into your knees and then press into the earth as you rise up tall, coming into your standing salute. Exhale, draw the hands to the heart center. Let's try that 2 more times. Inhale, circle sweep the arms up and overhead, looking up. Exhale, draw the hands to the heart center. And one more time. From here, let's walk the feet out wide on the mat. So you're going to come to the long edge of your mat, just like I am here. And you can bring your blocks out in front. And then we'll bring either your hands to your hips, or you might like to interlace the hands behind you if that feels okay for the shoulders. You can either have the feet exactly parallel, or it might feel a little bit more supportive to slightly pigeon toe the toes in. And then we're going to hinge from the hips, lead with the heart. So inhale to lift the heart, exhale to hinge from the hips, leading with the heart to come into your forward fold. So this is a wide-legged forward fold. You can either leave your hands at your hips or your fingers interlaced. You might leave them at your back. Or maybe you want to extend your arms if your hands are interlaced to find a little opening through the chest and shoulders, as long as there's no pain or pinching. I put lotion on my hands so my fingers are sliding apart. On the next exhale, you can bring the hands back to the low back and then release your fingertips to trace the back of your legs. We'll bring the hands to the blocks and inhale here for halfway lift with a flat back. Exhale to forward fold. Inhale for halfway lift. And exhale to forward fold. Try that one more time. Inhale for halfway lift. And this time we're going to stay in our halfway lift. So imagine that your back is basically like a tabletop. So it's flat. And then from here, we're going to come into a little bit of a twist. So you might leave your hand on a block on either the high setting or maybe the low setting, just planting that right hand right underneath your face. And then you can start to bring your left hand either to your hip, or you might start to sweep the entire hand open. So you're kind of lifting your heart up towards the sky, any amount. You can keep your hand on your hip, trying to keep your hips level. So you're finding that twist in your upper spine, your thoracic spine. Maybe you lift your gaze. On the next exhale, we'll lower back down to level. You can bring the blocks back on the high setting for your halfway lift. And then on your next exhale, you can move the left hand down right in front of your face, maybe on the block on the low setting. And then we're going to peel the left shoulder or the right shoulder open. So you might bring your hand to your hip. Maybe you start to peel your elbow up towards the sky, lifting your heart, maybe lifting your gaze. And then on the next exhale, whenever you feel ready, you can release that side. And then exhale to fully forward fold. And you might walk your hands out in front, maybe on the blocks. This is kind of like a wide-legged downward dog. As you walk your hands out in front, you can start to sink your hips back a little bit. Take one more nice deep breath here. And then we'll bring the hands back underneath the shoulders. Go ahead and pivot so that your toes are now facing out to 45 degrees. And you can bring your hands up to your thighs, coming into like a sumo squat. On the next exhale, allow the right shoulder to come down towards the left knee. Inhale back to center and exhale to switch sides. We'll inhale back to center, and then you can lift the spine up tall. And now you're imagining you're sitting on a horse. This is like call this a goddess squat or a horse squat. You might feel a little strength building in your legs. And then if you'd like, you can involve your arms. You might reach your arms up towards the sky. And then exhale. Maybe you want that lion's breath again. Bringing the hands into a cactus. And we'll inhale to lengthen the legs, lengthen the arms, reaching up towards the sky. Exhale one more time. Coming into your goddess squat. Maybe you want to do one more. Inhale to reach it tall. Exhale. You can bring your hands to your hips now, lengthen your legs, and we'll heel toe the feet back underneath the hips. Just take a moment to shake it all off. Whew. We're going to be making our way down to the ground. So feel free to shake it off as long as you'd like. And then we'll come back to center. You might inhale to sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale to swan dive forward for forward fold, Uttanasana. Inhale for halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana with your hands on shins or on blocks. And exhale to forward fold. Feel free to make your way down to your mat however you like. Maybe you want to take a downward dog, or you can come all the way down onto hands and knees. Then we'll walk the knees forward and come onto your seat. You can bring your feet out in front, and then go ahead and bring the soles of the feet together. Maybe you take that blanket to wedge underneath your sit bones. And you can lengthen through your spine to grow tall. And then we're going to come into Baddha Konasana. This is the upward bound angle pose. So you can start to walk your hands forward. You either might want the blocks to support underneath your knees, or you could bring your hands onto the blocks if you don't need them underneath the knees. And with a flat back, you can start to just walk forward any amount that gives you a nice sensation or stretch. You don't want pain or pinching. Go ahead and allow yourself to breathe into sensations. With each inhale breath, you can lengthen through your spine. Each exhale might allow you to hinge forward a little bit further. And you could even allow yourself to round a little bit, bowing your head. Take one more nice deep breath here. And then with your next inhale, we'll come back upright. We're going to make our way onto our backs next. So you can slide the blanket off to the side. Move your blocks out of the way. Bring your knees up towards the sky. And then you might walk yourself out a little ways so that you have room behind you to come onto your back. Not necessarily fall onto your back. And then you might reach your arms out in front of you. And maybe you pause on your way down to take a nice deep breath. Whenever you're ready, you might come onto your back, hug your knees in towards your chest. You can walk your hands up onto your ankles or your calves. Or maybe you want to reach for your feet and draw your knees towards your armpit for happy baby pose. Since we're getting towards the end of class, I like to give an opportunity for choice time. So I'm going to guide you through a twist next. But if there are other shapes that you prefer, you can always use this time for that instead. So for your twist, you can release your feet, but you're still having your knees hugged in towards your chest. Go ahead and open your arms out wide to the sides, and then you can allow the knees to float over to the right, and maybe you turn your gaze to the left. You could stay right here with your knees stacked in this twist. We call this a supine twist because it's on your back. Supine means on your back. Or if you'd like to deepen the twist, you could extend your right leg long, and maybe you use a block or your bolster to place underneath your knee, your left knee, so that you're not bringing your left knee all the way to the ground. So I just have a block right underneath the shin for this twist. Just allow yourself a moment to soften here. Once more, noticing where you can relax your effort, allowing it to balance with your ease. Allowing the earth to support you. Allowing yourself this time to settle in. Start to imagine gratitude bubbling up from the heart center. And just like our heart is pumping blood throughout our body, and offer gratitude from your heart center. So maybe you imagine gratitude like little bubbles floating through the blood. Gratitude from your heart to your body. Allowing yourself this time to surrender to where you're at today. Take one more nice deep breath on this side. And when you feel ready, you can hug your knees once more in towards your chest. Maybe you give yourself a little hug, wrapping your nose up towards the knees. And then gently soften your head back down. You can extend your arms out into a letter T. And then float the knees over to the left this time, sending your gaze over toward your right hand. You can always stay like this in your twist with your knees stacked, or maybe you want to deepen the twist by extending the left leg long, allowing the right knee to fall onto a prop of some kind, either that blanket as a roll, perhaps a block or a bolster. And then once more, allow yourself to settle in here, softening your effort. Noticing where in your body you can invite a release. Coming back to the surrender. Allowing your breath to gracefully trace a curve in your spine. Allowing both of your shoulders to feel rooted down to the earth. Feeling the earth rise to support you. And feeling that gentle hug of gravity, keeping you grounded. You can stay here for another round of breath. Whenever you feel ready, we're going to be making our way into Shavasana, our final resting pose. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of class, you're always welcome to modify anything. So if you feel that you would like to explore any other shapes before your final rest, if you'd like any supports for Shavasana, you're welcome to gather those supplies, maybe draping a blanket over you. Really feeling weighted can help, especially we were talking earlier before class about grounding. And then as you settle into your Shavasana, I will bring us back to this idea of Ishvara Pranidhana, surrender. In the book by Deborah Adele, The Yamas and the Niyamas, Yoga's Ethical Practices, she talks in this chapter about Shavasana. So I'll just read that passage, and you can allow the words to sprinkle over you like gentle drops of rain. You don't have to feel the need to hold on to them. She says the yoga posture called Shavasana, or corpse pose, is a posture for practicing surrender. Putting ourselves on our backs, our arms and legs stretched out at 45-degree angles from the body signifies the death of the activity we have just participated in. It is also a practice for the ultimate surrender of our own death. In Shavasana, there is nothing for us to do. We are asked to just lie there, releasing any tension in our bodies. letting go of effort, and trusting that the breath will breathe us and the body will renew itself. This might sound easy, but it's not. This practice of Shavasana is one of the most important practices we can do, for it is here that we begin to learn the meaning of letting go of all the ways we physically and mentally fight with life. As we learn to stop fighting life, we can begin to act skillfully. Control makes us rigid and tight and narrows our perspective. Getting rid of our armor opens a world of possibility, makes us lighter and more comfortable for the journey. We can monitor our moment-to-moment surrender to life by watching the inner sensations of contractions and expansion. Contraction is a feeling of constriction, pulling in. Expansion is an opening, a creating of space and wonder. When we find ourselves in contraction, we are fighting life or fearful of life. When we find ourselves in expansion, we are surrendering to the flow. Our practice is to melt ourselves and become one with the flow of life. As we relax and release our rigid thoughts and muscles, we can begin to flow with life. Like whitewater rafting, surrender is learning to skillfully ride with what the moment gives us, all the while enjoying the process. Whether we glide through safely or tip over and get wet. I love this quote. She says, Swami Rama used to say, do what is yours to do. Don't do what is not yours to do. How simple these words may sound to our ears, and yet they are profound to our understanding of surrender. As we are able to let go of what we can't change, we are able to grow more and more into our unique gift and contribution to life itself. There is something that is ours to do, whether it is large or small. It is our contribution to the whole of humanity. As we discern where our path lies, and then surrender to that awareness, we will begin to taste the freedom and joy in a way we never dreamed possible. Of course, since this is your own practice, you're welcome to stay longer, linger in your Shavasana. But if you do feel ready to reawaken the body, you can start to invite a little bit of movement into your fingers and into your toes. Gently rotating your wrists and your ankles. You might reach your arms past your ears and find a long body stretch. And then maybe you want to roll onto one side and find a fetal position. Maybe pause here for 2 rounds of breath. And then gently press yourself up into a seat. You can invite your hands to meet at your heart center. Maybe allow your head to gently bow towards the wisdom of your loving heart. It's such an honor and a privilege to guide you through your practice this morning. The light in me sees and honors and appreciates the light in each and every one of you. Namaste. My name is Micki, and if you have any questions or thoughts about class, please feel free to let me know. I'll stop the recording now.